Conditions are beginning to ease across parts of New South Wales, but there have also been some pretty big rainfall totals in the last 24 hours. Around 40,000 people are still subject to evacuation orders. On the mid-north coast of New South Wales, residents in parts of Bulahdelah and Tuncurry were told to get out, while Foster residents were put on standby. In the Hunter region, some homes and businesses are underwater. Bulga, a little community around an hour west of Newcastle, has been experiencing its worst flooding in 70 years, and there's been a dramatic rescue near there. More on that in a moment. Maitland and Singleton have also been hit hard, with Singleton's flood peak higher than in March, and a bit of concern about what could happen in Maitland this afternoon. And in Sydney, river levels are receding, with around 30,000 residents allowed to return home. But now drinking water in parts of Sydney has been affected. Debris has been swept into the water catchments, and residents in more than 30 suburbs in the city's west and northwest have been asked to reduce their water use. Okay, let's get the latest from the Singleton area and around that now in the Hunter region. Reporter Bindi Bryce has been soldiering through this over the last 24 hours in all this rain yesterday and is still out there for us today. So Bindi, yeah, there was a pretty dramatic rescue in the Hunter this morning, and you've spoken to some of the people involved in this. Take us through what happened.
That's right, Joe. So a couple of lifesavers have rescued a freezing baby from Bulga in the past several hours. Bulga is about 20 minutes west of Singleton, and they've been experiencing some major flooding over the past couple of days. So these lifesavers from Swansea Belmont are probably used to the rough surf around Newcastle and Lake Macquarie. They've come up here to Singleton to help out the SES with a lot of these flood rescues and using their rubber duckies. I spoke with them just a short time ago, and this is what they said.
The first call was, baby in distress, blue lips, not breathing. So obviously when we seen the first responder run up to the house with their medipack and that we're expecting the worst possibly, or to come across, but he did all the work. He said Bub come to us, he was crying, and which was great to hear. As soon as you open the car door and Bub's crying, that was a great sign to see. And we knew he's the one who's done the work to get Bub going again. So, and as I said, and Mum was so relaxed that she was the trooper in it. She was the strong one there. So it was good.
Mum was doing really well. Basically, we ran her through the safety to get her onto our boat, and as quickly as possible get her to the other side, and she done exactly what we asked her to do, which was great.
That's that was probably the worst call that I would have heard, especially a baby. When a baby is involved, that's a little bit, you could say, distressing, because as a parent what it would be like, seeing your child not breathing and stuff would be devastating. But Mum was, as we said, fantastic. She was so calm, and it made me feel so much calmer when she was so relaxed, and you went, okay, if she's happy and calm, and we just focused on our job and do what we have to do to make sure we get them across the river nice and safe. So
I wouldn't say we saved the baby's life. It's a chain of people, and we have a task to do in that chain, and hopefully at the end of the day that chain works and we get the patient to where they need to be.
And so, great to hear a positive story amidst all this. And so, Bindi, did you get the impression that this was a house kind of on an island surrounded by water, or they just had to get the baby over the river to get it to the appropriate emergency care?
Yeah, we're still waiting to hear some more details, but that's what we've been hearing about what it's like over there at Bulga, that so many of these properties are cut off. There's no roads going in and out of the town, like most of them are flooded. And really the only way to get to places like Bulga to do these sort of flood evacuations is with a boat or with a really heavy armoured vehicle. So that is what the SES and the surf lifesavers have been doing. They've been getting around this region. They've been flat out for the past couple of days. They did 180 evacuations over at the nearby village of Broke. Just so many of these properties here in the Hunter Valley who are just completely cut off at the moment, Joe. So hopefully, with the rain easing off today, this system moving north, then the situation will ease a little bit. The SES can do some of that recovery work, and we can get a clearer idea of what the damage has been like in the Hunter.
And Bindi, yesterday around this time when we spoke to you, you were standing down next to the Hunter River and it looked like it was only about kind of 10 metres wide. Is that the Hunter River behind you now? And explain how broad the expanse of water is there, and feel free to get the camera operator to move around and show us around a bit.
Yeah, so in a bit of a different spot. So, this is Rose Point Park. Now, this is the main sporting fields in Singleton. There's several rugby league fields, some AFL fields, tennis courts, cricket nets and that kind of thing here. It's quite a large space, and just a couple of days ago this place looked completely fine, but you can just see how high the water has come up. I don't know if you can see those goalposts right there in the background. That was a rugby league field. I don't think anyone's going to be playing footy there for a while, so this really does illustrate just how flooded Singleton has become. We're right on the flood levy right now, and this flood levy has really has held up and prevented a lot of this flood water from entering a lot of the businesses in the Singleton CBD. But I think it's going to be probably at least a few days before the water comes down and everyone can come back here and play sport.
Yeah, and in Singleton itself, so it sounds like the CBD, we saw water across kind of the main road going through the CBD yesterday, parts of it. It wasn't at a really high level, but most of the businesses and homes in Singleton have escaped water damage, but there are kind of low-lying areas around that have been affected. Yeah,
a lot of the low-lying farms. We spoke to a farmer called Sam a little bit earlier and, took a little bit of a tour of his property just to get an idea of what it's like for a lot of the farmers out here in Singleton who, deal with this sort of thing pretty much any time it floods. But look, I wouldn't say there's no houses underwater that we can see, but there's a lot of houses that have just been inundated. Particularly right in the middle of the town where it is, a little bit more low-lying. Like floodwaters have definitely inundated some houses in Singleton. Fortunately, it's, not been the same scenes that we've seen out at Wollombi where some places have been completely underwater, but there's just people around here are just breathing a bit of a sigh of relief, even though this is a really alarming sight to see this sport field completely underwater and to also see the Hunter River just over there so high, like some of the highest levels they've seen since 2007. I think the locals are just going to be breathing a massive sigh of relief here in Singleton, and the focus is really going to shift to those places like Bulga, Wollombi and Broke. Those places were hit so hard by the flooding, and we really need to get an idea of the damage out there. So hopefully the SES can get out there and, we can start to see that recovery effort, Joe.
And Bindi, in that media conference that authorities just held, they mentioned Maitland as an area of concern through this afternoon and evening. Is that basically downstream on the Hunter from where you are there, and that peak from Singleton is moving down towards Maitland now?
The Hunter River runs through the entire Hunter Valley and it connects all these towns. So, the next town in line is Maitland. It's about half an hour away from here. A big regional city of about 80,000 people. Again, another place that is pretty used to flooding. But, usually after these bigger flood events here at Singleton, there's going to be concern about that downstream water. So, they'll be keeping an eye on what happens down in Maitland.
Okay, Bindi Bryce reporting there from Singleton in the Hunter Valley in New South Wales. Residents in Sydney's northwestern fringe are beginning to return home as floodwaters slowly recede. Cecilia Connell reports from Windsor.
As you'll be able to see behind me, much more of this bridge is now visible as those waters start to recede. If you look behind me, there's some police tape, and yesterday the water was just lapping at this line of leaves and twigs just behind that tape, but it's now receded another 8 to 10 metres further back, and I'd say just in the time that I've been here this morning, Joe, that's gone down another half metre approximately. So those receding water levels along the Hawkesbury, combined with the easing of weather conditions across the Sydney Basin, is giving residents here the chance to begin the initial clean-up, which of course, even though conditions are improving, that's something that's going to take months, as well as to assess the damage bill to their properties. Where I am now in Windsor, the Hawkesbury River peaked on Tuesday at just under 14 metres, and it was higher than the level recorded in March this year. It's currently at around 11.5 metres, so those levels are definitely going down, and that is the situation generally for communities along the Hawkesbury River catchment this morning. The SES says that overnight they've issued 57 return with caution alerts, meaning that some people have been able to return to their homes, mainly in Sydney's southwest. Here's what emergency authorities have to say about the situation today.
We are still focusing on the Hawkesbury Nepean and the Georges and Warrenora catchments and rivers where we have flood warnings remaining, particularly on the Hawkesbury Nepean. And we're supporting communities return to their homes, particularly around the Georges and Warrenora, where we've seen floodwaters recede. And in the coming days and today even, you'll see the fire services starting to get into those areas to help those communities with hosing out and removing debris and rubbish from their homes.
Those payments, which were announced yesterday by the Prime Minister, will be available from around 2 o'clock this afternoon for 23 flood-affected LGAs across New South Wales, including here in Windsor. Now, they include a $1,000 payment for adults and $400 for each child for residents who have been significantly impacted and suffered damage as a result of these floods. As well as that, the disaster recovery allowance has also been triggered, and that allows employees and sole traders who've lost income as a result of these floods some benefit, and that is payable for a maximum of 13 weeks. As I said, Joe, the Prime Minister did tour residents' homes in the Hawkesbury region yesterday, along with New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet. Despite that, though, residents have welcomed the cash payment, but given that this is yet another flood in such a short length of time, they say what they're calling for is a long-term solution as they again begin a massive clean-up.